So, first of all, I'm going to say good morning, and I'm really happy to be here, not only because statistics is so important to the heart, really at the heart of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, but also because my sister is a statistician. So if you run across a statistician whose name is Susan Groshen, you don't have to wonder whether we're related. She's my older sister. And we'll be sharing a room at the JSM meetings later next month. Okay. But I really, it's most of the time when we talk to statisticians, and I talk to statisticians, I'm talking about using BLS statistics. It's really an honor and a good, an important opportunity for me to talk to you, not just as users, but as educators as well. Because the work you're doing is very complex, you're trying to bring people into this world that we know is growing, and developing in all sorts of interesting ways. So I think it must be a fascinating time for you to be thinking about what's the future of education in statistics. And to that end, I want to tell you a little bit about how we see things developing in that world, and also about the BLS as a place where people do statistics, where we hope your students will decide to come and work. So let me start off with our mission. We are the principal federal agency responsible for measuring labor market activity, working conditions, and price changes in the economy. That defines our turf. Now, why is that our turf? Well, in 1884, when we were created, and we're the first statistical agency that was created in the federal government, there was a tremendous amount of turmoil in the street, industrial turmoil between employers and employees. They were killing each other. And the policymakers decided that maybe they would be a little bit closer to peace and consensus if they were working from a common set of facts. So that's why the BLS was created. It was before there was a Department of Commerce or a Department of Labor. We were in the Department of Interior. And the kinds of things that they were fighting over were times good or bad in the labor market? What were working conditions like? What was happening to the cost of living? So that still defines our term. Though, not surprisingly, we collect, we analyze, and we disseminate essential economic information. It's not just employers and employees that use the data now, but financial markets, families, really, I don't think there's any sector of the American economy that doesn't use BLS data in some way or another. But why do we create the data? Now, for those of us who are data nerds, this may seem like a funny question. You create the data because it's important, it's interesting, it's great, right? But fundamentally, the reason why tax dollars go to creating BLS data is to support decision making. Because in this society, we believe that we get to the best possible outcome if we allow decision making to be made at the lowest possible level. And that's true if people make good decisions. But they only make good decisions if they have good information. Otherwise, they make what we at the BLS call technically lousy decisions. So our job is to give them the information so that they can make good decisions. We provide a lot of that information, but we're not the only ones. There are, depending on how you count it, 13 to over 40 statistical agencies within the federal government. We have this fragmented statistical system. Other countries have a single, Stats Canada, UK Statistics, right? Ours started off fragmented and continues to be fragmented. The largest statistical agency is the census, which, as you see, was created in 1902. They have almost 14,000 employees. That fluctuates a lot because they have a lot of what they call cyclical programs. As an economist, that jars me because they're not talking about the business cycle. They're talking about the decennial, every 10 years for the decennial census and every 5 years for their establishment surveys. Anyway, let's start with us. We have about 2,400 employees, and this is our turf. I mentioned those before. Census does population, demographics, poverty, industry revenue, which is all of their census of establishments, and they do housing. BEA has only 463 employees, but they do, I sometimes say, we create salad. When you look at our statistics, you sort of understand what each piece of it means and how it got there. It's pretty clear to understand it. BEA makes mousse. Right? They take a lot of inputs from other statistical agencies and create the national income and product accounts, gross domestic product, input-output tables, balance of payments. They do this kind of derivative work primarily. So, and there's actually the third largest statistical agency is actually NAS, the National Agricultural Statistical Service. And they create a lot, distribute a lot of information on the agricultural sector. Okay, they have 957 employees. So let me tell you just a little more about BLS. When I say people need good data, what do we mean by good data? Let's take it back to decision making. If you're going to make a decision on the basis of data, it has to meet a certain set of criteria. Otherwise, there's no point in using the data. First of all, it's got to be accurate. You've got to get it right. Secondly, it's got to be objective. You can't worry that it's being influenced by some agenda. It's got to be relevant. Answer the question you need answered to make your decision. It's got to be timely, get to you on time so you can make the decision. And it's got to be accessible in both the literal and the figurative sense of the word. Accessible, you can find it, it's on the website, you can get it, and also with enough documentation and explanation that you understand what it means. And if you put those together, they spell out aorta, the largest artery in the human body. We think of data as the lifeblood of the economy. Okay. And our bottom line, so for instance, think about this in the context of the CPI, the Consumer Price Index. This is used, if we didn't have the CPI, right, then can you imagine the political battles we have every year on how to adjust Social Security payments? Right? But yet it's a huge charge that we at the BLS have, because if we make 0.1% mistake in calculating the CPI, then just Social Security benefits alone would see a $1 billion overpayment or underpayment in benefits. And my top priority, of course, is to get the very best information we can from every one of the nation's data dollars that are devoted to the BLS. We don't get enough, but that means we've got to spend every single one of them as well as possible. And how do we do this? By setting the highest standards possible for data quality and for integrity, and we've done so since the beginning. And this is an example, some of the things that we measure. We have educational attainment data, and by combining information from different statistics that we collect, you can see what the median usual weekly earnings are by educational attainment, contrasted with the unemployment rate for each group. And this all comes from the current population survey. This is for persons 25 and over. You can see is that, I'm not sure why that number, should you be interested, is 1,730 value. Basically, the higher your education, the more you earn, and the lower your unemployment rate. Very stark comparison. So you are educating folks to try and get them up here. Let's see. And we just added to this information, complementary information on licenses and certifications. Those have been introduced into the current population survey. In April, we put out our first annual release that details some of what we found with it. We have clear evidence that that holders of these credentials, that you are more likely to hold these credentials the higher your formal educational attainment is, and that earnings rise with licenses and certifications as well. It's not surprising, but now we have firm statistical evidence on it. All right, so now let's focus particularly on our employment projections. By and large, the BLS does not do forecasts. We leave that to Wall Street and the Fed. But the one thing we forecast is employment, and particularly employment by occupation. So we do these every 2 years, and every 2 years we forecast 10 years out. The 2014 to 24 projections actually just came out in December. And that seems a little funny that we're starting from 2014 when we're in 2016, but it's because we spend a lot of time processing the 2014 information. 2014 has to be over before we can start doing that. And so we end up kind of starting earlier than our projections. But anyway, so these projections cover over 800 occupations, 300 industries. They form the basis for our Occupational Outlook Handbook, which is our biggest seller at the BLS. So while we produce a lot of important products, this is the product that goes out most widely. Job counselors across the country use it. It's accessible to everybody, so prisons use it. Everybody uses this source as a basic one. States and local areas use it to make state and regional projections as well. So the Occupational Outlook Handbook takes the projections, pairs it with occupational descriptions, and makes it accessible to a wide variety of people. We prepare our projections at the national level only, but states and local employment agencies then kind of divvy it up into for their regions. And it's used a lot, as I said, for career preparation decisions. The kinds of things we focus on is what's the typical education needed for an occupation, what's the work experiences in the related occupation, and what's on-the-job training needed for that. We give average wages, we give numbers of jobs too. So let's look at the jobs that are really central to today's gathering. Let's look at mathematicians, economists, actuaries, statisticians, mathematical science teachers, and survey researchers. represent the number in thousands in 2014 and contrast that with 2024, and then show you the change in thousands and as a percentage, the typical education degree needed for entry into those occupations, and then the median annual wage in 2015. Basically, these are all occupations that are expected to grow quite substantially faster than the average for all occupations. And the factors driving this growth are increased use of data to make informed decisions across all sectors, and also, of course, the increase in the data that's available to be analyzed. So more and more throughout our economy, people are making evidence-based decisions, and the folks that you are training are the ones who are going to be providing that evidence. So it's just the only occupation here that isn't expected to grow faster than average actually is economists, because the economy-wide average is 6.5%. So my peers are going to lose out here. But the average annual wage for all occupations is $36,000, so they're all paying well in excess of the average annual wage.
Well, why are the mathematicians paid so much more than the statisticians?
Well,
fewer of them. According to the numbers.
Yeah. So actually, I don't have an answer for that, but I think it's because there are actuaries at a lot of different levels of expertise. You know, some of them are fairly junior, doing very rote work. There are very few mathematicians who are not at a very high level of expertise and training. I think that's the reason.
What's the projected population growth?
The projected growth for all occupations is 6.5%. The population growth would actually be a little bit higher than that because we're in a period of declining labor force participation. Okay. And BLS actually employs workers in several of these occupations, particularly economists, statisticians, and survey researchers. So those are our projections. Let's take it now to BLS. So who do we employ? Of the 2,400 employees that we have, half of our employees are economists. Now, they don't all actually have a degree in economics. They just have to have a set of courses that to us defines them as economists. But we also have quite a few mathematical statisticians and economic assistants. And of course, we have quite a few IT specialists. So the people in your classes likely qualify for any number of our occupations. Let's see, and where do they work? About 1,500 of them are here in DC, but 1,000 of them are across the country in our field offices, where they are talking to firms, convincing them to participate in our surveys, and you need some expertise to be able to do that. They are collecting the data from the firms, and they're also disseminating it to users in their areas.
How many PhD level statisticians do you employ?
I'm guessing now, but I'm guessing it's probably, let's see, we have 156 total. I'll bet we have about 40 PhDs, something like that. But I can find that out for you. But generally speaking, here we are in percentages, and you can see that there's a general upward trend. This shows you in dark what percentage of our employees have a bachelor's degree, in the yellow master's degree, and green PhD. Our average educational attainment has been rising. This drop that you see here, remember the sequester? That was a permanent cut in our funding. That's what the sequester was. And so we had to eliminate several programs in 2013 as a result of the sequester. So we had this dip. Basically, in 1980, only half of our staff had at least a college degree, and now we're up to 80%. Let's see. Okay. So let me. And who were these people? These were a lot of people doing clerical work, data entry, copying numbers, and now we get so much of our information electronically. We don't need nearly as much of that. So, what else? So, and how many people are we hiring? This shows you 2013, 2014, and 2015. 2013 was pretty low, but even in 2013, we hired 63 people in the mission critical occupations. Those are economists, statisticians, and mathematical statisticians. In 2014, 87, and in 2015, 98. So we hire a fair number of people. And this is primarily, of course, replacement hiring now from retirements or people who have moved on to other positions. So why do people come work for the BLS? I think the key, the most important thing is that they know they're working on something really important. There's also the satisfaction of doing public service. You, as professors, know that there's tremendous reward in knowing that you've helped people. Right? We also offer quite a good work-life balance. We think we have one of the best ones in the federal government. A lot of work-at-home options, lots of good benefits package, transit subsidies. We have a fitness center. There's a daycare center, things like that. Excellent retirement plan. And huge numbers of opportunities to learn and grow. We spend a lot of money on training, and we like to move people up into doing more and more responsible positions as soon as they're ready. So I know I've been there 3.5 years, and I'm still learning something new every day. I don't think a day has gone by that I didn't find out something about how statistics are put together, or what's going on in the labor market, or how people are using our information. So it's really an exciting place. And we really, BLS says over and over again in a lot of our materials that our staff is our greatest resource. But I saw this close up and personal during the government shutdown in 2013. Because the three of us who were left rattling around that building did not produce a single line of data. It really is the staff. And it's an enormous resource to us. There are people at the BLS who are the world's expert in seasonal adjustment because we are the ones who do it. Right? A lot of academics aren't paying attention to this, but we have to do it, and it's really important. And so we have the world's experts in seasonal adjustment. And there are a lot of other areas like that, modeling data, things like that, where our folks in the trenches that are doing this all the time. And most of them certainly got some academic training, but did a huge amount of the work after they got to BLS. It's where they developed the skills. How do people get to jobs? One of the pathways is through internships. We have a lot of them, and so I encourage you to tell your students about them. Pathways program takes recent grads at the current graduate students, undergraduate, junior, or senior students can apply for summer internships. There are also full-time internships for graduate students who can come and spend a year with us. They're typically posted at various times throughout the academic year. And then after they do that internship, they have an eased path towards a full-time job at BLS. And they're all paid, right? But they're based on the needs of the agency. And that's important because people are going to come in and there's going to be something for them to do. Right? It's not, we don't just have a bunch of internships and then we figure out what to do with them. We're actually tied to projects that need to be done. So if you want to know more about it, BLS.gov jobs is where you can find out about it.
Question.
Yeah,
What type of visa requirements do you have for the?
they have to be U.S. citizens. U.S. citizens. Now, we also offer a lot of resources for researchers. Anybody want to guess how many pages are on the BLS website? Somebody brought the number?
10 million.
It's the first time anybody has overestimated the number, so it's not 10 million, it's less than 1 million. It's 300,000, over 300,000. And how many page views do we get per month?
10 million.
17 million. So we have a lot of public data. People are using it all the time. They're not using every page of the 300,000. So there's a lot there for you to use for your research and also for your students to use. And so I encourage you to get to know it. There are aggregate data for all of our programs. There are public use files. There are supplemental data and charts. And it's all supported by our handbook of methods and publications. We also allow people to come in to use confidential microdata. We have a program in place. People can come to the BLS to do that. You can apply for that. And we're joining the Research Data Center network so that people will be able to use it away from the BLS. And you can also, by the way, publish in our monthly labor review. So if you write a paper and you would like that audience, which is a huge audience, don't forget to think about BLS as a place to publish. These are some, and I know I'm running out of time, but these are some of the things we are worrying about and dealing with at BLS. Harnessing big data. Big data, the whole big data world is a complement to federal statistics, not a substitute for it. So it's a huge opportunity for us, and we're very excited about that. We can talk a lot. We're doing auto coding, we're doing blending, we're trying to get more administrative data. We are doing more collaborative work with colleagues. There's a lot of focus on labor market issues these days. That's good for us. And there's huge growth in the number or the diversity of users and dissemination modes, which poses challenges for us. And then finally, we're always working on maintaining response rates and user trust. You can help us with a lot of these things by giving us feedback so that when we make our choices, we're making the right ones. You can tell us how we can help you. We have a K through 12 page. If there are teaching aids that would help you, that you think we could work on, we'd love to hear about that. And if you have advice for our website or the data in general, don't be shy. So let me finish now. I want to thank you for the opportunity to talk to you. And I welcome you to the world of BLS users. I hope that this will just be the beginning of an ongoing conversation.